Carlos Nelson with Cascade Sports. Today we're continuing our series, Bridging the Gap Between Sports and Education. And who do we have here?
Well, I'm Coach Dixon, Donald Dixon. I go by Coach Dixon, of course. One of the head coaches around here in Wichita on the girls' side of things. So,
where do you coach at?
I coach at Wichita Southeast. Yeah, it's home of the Buffaloes.
The Buffaloes? All right.
Uh-huh.
With this being Bridging the Gap Between Sports and Education, let's go back to how you got in basketball, where you played, and how you arrived at the position that you're in, and give the props to the coaches and people in your life that helped mold you into the person you are today. Let's go back to the first time you picked up the ball.
All right, man, I've been playing basketball for years. I started around the age of 5. That's YMCA basketball and just getting introduced to the game of basketball. I played for a coach, Tyrone Berry, which is, I think he's out of the Kansas City area, which now resides in Wichita. So he started me out, and I just been on the go ever since.
What grade was you in, and what team was you playing on?
That was an actual YMCA team. So
right.
it was so I mean it was kind of competitive actually. I mean that was a big deal for me because it actually introduced me to the game of basketball and the fundamentals that I so learned to end up loving throughout the
What grade was you in?
I was 5 years old. I was in pre-K, I believe.
All right.
So yeah, it was a lot of things like, doing cartwheels on the floor at the time, But I mean, like I said, he instilled the right things in me. And it's crazy because that same coach that I started out with, I ended up rejoining in high school or middle school, actually.
And, what was that like? I said, talk about middle school. Now that you've been playing a little, the bitty. Now you're getting into middle school. You're thinking, I'm a little grown here. What was that like?
It's crazy, man. You come from those YMCA leagues thinking you're like the top dog, and then you get put on a different pedestal. I mean, the people in that league knows you, but they haven't seen you on the circuit level. So you get introduced to the MAYBs, the AAUs, and it becomes a lot more serious and more ways to understand where you really are for your talent wise. So I mean, I got to middle school and I was no longer the number one guard that I thought I was, so it was a reality check. So
what did you learn playing middle school, and who did you learn it from?
Middle school ball, it's crazy. I had my mom as a coach, which that was very difficult. I mean,
What's your mom's name?
Trina Dixon.
Hey, Miss Dixon, shout out from the baby boy.
Oh, for sure, man. She's now the head coach over there at Coleman Middle School, so she's still at it herself. So yeah, I mean, well, she was my middle school coach, and it was times where we didn't see eye to eye, and I had to watch from the sideline. It was that was
that bench?
No longer. It was no longer mom. It was no longer mom. It was more so, hey, that now I got to understand that was coach at that moment. So.
Now that you coach, was that a learning moment as a player, and now as a coach, those type incidents?
Yeah, well, actually, it's crazy. My first year, I ended up having to do the same scenario with my baby sister. She ended up playing for me. And it was very, for me being a first year head coach at the time, it was a difficult situation getting her to understand the reality of the sport. Like this sport, it tells no lies, man. If you're not working on your game, it's definitely going to showcase. And that's the hardest lesson to teach that to someone that you got to see on Sunday dinner, at the dinner table. So
I'm probably gonna go back to it, but how difficult is that you as the coach coaching son daughter, family, and understanding the mentality of other players? Is this the teacher's pet? And
Yeah.
or this favoritism? How did
Right.
that weigh on you?
So you get those, the outsiders that's gonna always critique you as playing favoritism when reality, like they don't see the situation in practice, of course. But it came down for me to a point to where, hey, my sister just so happened to be the second best scorer on the team, and any mistake she got to hear it from the crowd a little bit, and I'm like, hey, you got to continue on your course, and you got to learn to tune that out because they're going to say that as long as you're playing for me. So it was more so me setting her aside and getting her to understand the reality of it,
So
and,
that's
and, and
you
going
you
from there.
you transferred that lesson that mom transferred to you, and
Yes,
you passed
yes,
that baton
yes.
on. All right, that
Right.
and that's what this is about, bridging this gap, understanding
Hmm.
what sports is about. It's not just about going to the WNBA or what
Right.
have you. It's a growth process with
Hmm.
your athletic ability and your personal development.
Right. Right. And like I said, that's big time in this. I mean, me learning, throughout the 4 years I've been coaching and head coach, it's been more of a thrill getting others to understand what you're trying to teach, more so than actually winning a lot of games and just bypassing those lessons. So
So let's speed it up. Uh, your high school career. What high school you go to, and all I want to know: did you start as a freshman?
I did not start as a freshman. I went to two high schools. I went to one Wichita Heights High School, and then my sophomore, going to my junior year, I ended up transferring and going to Wichita Southeast on a basketball situation with Coach Carl Taylor. Shout out to Coach Carl Taylor. He's a very very disciplinary coach. Man, it took some adjusting for me. Uh, like I said, me and Chris Tyler also had the same coach. We were teammates back then. So yeah, I ended up starting at Wichita Southeast, but that was my junior
What
year.
was you? What your junior year?
That was my junior year when I did start. Yeah.
Uh, let's. One thing you mentioned, I think we need to talk about. You said that coach was a disciplinarian coach, and
Yes.
coming up through the ranks, understanding uh, what your responsibility is as a baller and what the coach's
Hmm.
responsibility is. A lot of times, young players don't understand that. And
You don't get it when you're
right, this coach did it this way, this coach did it that
uh-huh.
way, but you
Yeah.
with me now, and this is how we do it. Run that down.
Right. Right. So basically, it's like you have to find your talents that fit that coach's coaching style. So it's like you might think you're good at shooting, but that's not what that coach need at the time. So if it doesn't fit the scheme of the whole team, it's hard to set your pride aside when you're used to doing almost, what you thought you were good at. So that was more so my situation there. He brought me in. He told me he loves my defense. He said, I need you to provide what the game's missing. So whatever the game was missing at the time, I was like that handy tool that he can go to and be like, "Hey, man, this is what we need from you, and let's go. Let's make it happen." And
How
so I
did
was
that
doing that from the
color?
point guard
How did
position.
that mindset help you to adjust as really being a team player? Because in the society we living in now, it's me, 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 and then me
Yeah,
again.
how many I can score now? No, but no, it my mentality was more so I was never really I was a point guard, so I was never really a selfish point guard, which is it's kind of changing the roles of the point guard position, changing, right before our eyes. It's more so, can I point guard go out and get you 30 and 10 instead of, doing whatever it takes to win a ball game. So I kind of got that instilled for knowing my strengths younger, more so in the younger developmental of my game. knowing what I can provide to the table. So I was okay. I can handle it a lot easier from a coach, when they're being straightforward with me on what they want from me.
Uh, so what kind of season did you have junior year yourself?
So junior year, I did. I only averaged to probably like me being. It was a senior in front of me, so I only averaged probably like 15 minutes, 15 to 20, 15 to 20 minutes. And like I said, I was cutting in half varsity minutes with a senior. So, and that was my first time on the main stage. So it took a lot of adapting. My junior year was kind of, I would say, subpar. It
And,
wasn't. It
and
wasn't just a.
again, I'm interrupting you a little bit because you
Uh-huh.
keep hitting on the same subjects that Chris hit on.
Yes.
I respected the seniors in front of me, and
And
I
that's
learned from them. See, a lot of players. I don't. I play, but most black people play basketball. They then came up in the
Oh
hood.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh yes.
but a lot of people don't want to wait their turn, and
Right.
they
Right.
sour a team behind their
Yeah.
personal with your teammates. Have you seen that go on
Yes, it's been actually. I'm dealing with it now.
as a
I had
coach?
a
Huh?
yeah, I had a few situations to where I even lost a few kids because they felt like their kids should have just jumped everybody else that was lined up to become the next one. So I mean, I'm dealing with that. I've dealt with it, but Coach Taylor was stern about going in your steps that you should be. So I mean, it was just something that was instilled. Like once you stepped into that building in Southeast, you knew it was a stepping stool that you had to get by in order to stay on the floor.
And
So
how did you deal with a lot of kids don't deal with uh, being on that bench and truly staying your head in the game
right,
and uh, uh, rooting for your teammates and wholeheartedly. How
right,
difficult is that? Just as a human being, I know, especially when you
yeah.
be competitive, but
When
when
you're
you've been coached by a good coach, you start to
yes,
begin to understand. Talk about that.
right. So basically, just rooting for the best outcome of the people you bleed and sweat with in practice, man. That's a practice habit to me. It's when you sharpening your opponent in practice, I think that becomes it's just a non-biased situation when it comes for rooting for that same kid you helped up in practice. So I mean, it was that environment for us. So we knew, even though we might have thought some days we were better than the person he started, it was still a genuine love for the person that's getting that opportunity because yours is coming sooner or later. It wasn't no rush to things. So I mean, that was the mindset of actually waiting your turn and ready to produce. My situation to me was I wasn't I didn't want to be put in a situation where I wasn't ready for. I know the colleges are looking at stats when they call Coach Taylor, and I knew for a fact, hey, maybe I'm not ready to put up a consistent stat line. So I'm gonna wait my turn until I get my game rounded enough to step into that realm.
With Cascade Sports being home to the student athlete, uh,
Hmm.
those books, the challenge of
Yeah.
the academic life as well as the athletic life.
Man, the academic level. Well,
Brother
one thing
said, "Ah."
yeah, man, the academics were. Uh, it was a situation. It was situations to where you really had to buckle down because you didn't want that backlash of being I would say they used to call us dumb athletes back then. You know what I
Now,
mean?
hold it.
You're an athlete, and that's just me being an honest person. Like you're a great athlete, but he's dumb in the classroom, and you
But
don't
you
want to
know
get that
what?
harsh reality.
That hung on football players way more than it hung on basketball players in
It
my
did.
era
It
in the
did.
60s.
No, no, it still does. It's still until this day. It's still hanging over those football players' head. I don't know
But
how they get that.
you
I don't
know
know how
what?
that
But I
happened.
think changing the subject, I think players like LeBron James and other
Hmm.
players in the NFL and what's going on, that's changing the perception that label has been put on us, per se.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean those guys that didn't get the college opportunity or the college journey that are able to represent themselves as well as a LeBron James and a Kobe Bryant and even Kevin Garnett and players like that. They're representing themselves very well for people that doesn't have the educational background. And I think it's kind of smoothing over that thought process of being that athlete that just that's all he's good for is just being an athlete. So we're getting it's not more of a stereotypical type of thing
So your
anymore.
senior
So
year, what was that like? Take us through your senior year.
man, so our league, my senior year, it was loaded with guards, man. We had guards galore. If you were a big man, you were gonna stand out regardless. So it was mainly a 6 foot and a 6'2" and under type of league. I think our tallest dude was 6'4", but we never had a true center that we were going up against every night on a day in day out basis. So everybody can handle, everybody can pass, everybody can, you know what I mean? Like it was guard tight. So in order to be something special in the city league, you had to stand out. You know, you have to go above and beyond for preparing yourself for that season to stand out. So like I said, it was all every guard that I played with in AAU, we all decided amongst each other that we were going to go to separate high schools to make the league more competitive. So it wasn't none of that joining up crap that you see go on in the NBA. So it was more so, hey, we want games to be tight, good, and we want our league to get looked at. Of course, that wasn't the conversation, but we didn't want to play behind one another when we play with each other throughout the summer. So, you know, that's kind of how that worked out. I mean, and like I said, senior year was really tight. I mean, we had a great team. We actually won the city league, I believe, my senior year, and we went on to play in the state tournament, and we ended up losing to I can't even think of the team's name. It was one of those Kansas City team, Olathe something, and we lost to them, and we ended up taking third. But the team from our city league ended up winning it all, but they couldn't beat Southeast.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a up and down type of scenario. Like we would beat that team that won state multiple times, but we didn't come home with the big trophy. So
That's a very
got
disappointing
yes,
situation. That
yeah, it was, but it was a learning experience, man. You know, preparing me to go on to my future and learning to stand on my own as a college athlete. So
tell our audience a little bit about, uh, as we saying, bridging this gap between sports and education. And
okay,
now that you are a head coach yourself, and
yeah.
what you learned through athletics, uh, that has prepared you and given you the opportunity, that scholarship to go to JUCO, that scholarship to go to a 4-year university to get that degree. Uh,
Right.
how do you feel that opportunity just in itself, you being an athlete, where
Hmm.
from high school, other people that weren't athletes didn't see that sports would be an opportunity to
Yeah.
improve their lifestyle? Talk about that.
So yeah, man. If I'd have knew what I knew now, I would have took my education a lot more serious. I did. Don't get me wrong. I did go a very long way with my education, but I didn't know once the ball would stop dribbling, I would have to. I didn't. No one was ever speaking to me on those terms. Like even my coaches. So now that I know what I know now, it's like, man, that's a major step when it comes to being successful after basketball and tying the two together, man. Use pretty much using what your abilities are to excel on the academic level. I think that's a major thing that's missing in our youth today, because they think they can just go and put up the numbers and just ride that wave all the way up until they're successful. They don't count the injuries. They don't count the, what I mean, the mishaps, the what ifs.
They don't count,
So,
hold it, they don't count them books, and they think that a coach is going to get them because they're a star athlete. Coach will lose
right.
his job giving you a
Yeah.
scholarship and then you don't be
and you
eligible.
don't follow through, so yeah, preparing yourself, it's all about preparation, man. You get in those situations where you're in college, and it's like no one waking you up to go to class. That's a self-motivated thing. So now it becomes you relying on what you've been taught over the years of being, from teens all the way up, just relying
Discipline,
on. Yes.
responsibility, and all of that.
Hmm.
That's where, again, I say, why I have you all bring your experience from kindergarten on, because
Yeah.
good coaches, you learning different things at different
Hmm.
stages, and
You
you
are.
can recognize what you need to do now, whether you have the fortitude and the discipline to
Hmm.
go there and not be distracted two horse of different color.
Right, and of course, it's plenty of distractions there, man. If you allow it, so it's easily to get distracted, but it's not easy to stay on task, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's all about, like I said, knowing when to surround yourself around certain groups of people, and if making sure you're reading them enough to know that they're on the same page as where you're trying to get. I so happen to have some guys in college that was their mindset was, hey, we're going to the league after this, like. So I attached myself to those guys, and it was, after a workout we would go get another workout in, and then hey, did you do your English assignment? It was we were keeping each other rounded, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it was a
So,
blessing.
and wrapping this up, what would you have to say to a young athlete in high school, and
Hmm.
what would you have to say to a young coach or a young athlete that has graduated and is looking at being a mentor and a coach?
uh I would say relate to those kids on your by your own way. Don't use nobody else's way. Don't try to follow anybody. Be you and be real to those kids, and you'll be surprised what kids get out of that, man. They'll be thanking you for years to come, just because you were able to be yourself. And they, kids pick up on a lot of I want to say, we call them waves. So I mean, if you're giving off the right vibe as a coach, I can pick that up immediately, and I would, it's a lot easier for me to trust you now. So I would say, hey man, do it on your own terms, do it on your own way, be you throughout, whether it becomes a situation where you got to be real with a kid, or where you got to boost that kid's head up and self-esteem just to get something out of them. It though Either or, you have to be who you are as a person, so with that kid, to
All
get
right, now on the
the
young college athletes that are coming
Mhm.
out, uh, what kind of advice would you give them that want to get into the coaching profession?
I would tell them, hey, everything that you learn, don't forget the part of being a student of the game, because the game keeps evolving. If you're not a student of the game, if you feel like you know it all or whatever, that's when you, for real, you're done watering your plant. That's how I look at that. So I mean, continue to make sure you find different philosophy with the game of coaching basketball. Different, just listen, being an open book. Don't shut people down so easily, man. That's how you build a great. To me, that's how a great coach keeps evolving.
Excellent.
Mhm.
As we always say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. But don't forget that
Like that.
Cascade Sports, we go hard, and I mean
Go hard.
hard in the paint.
All right.
This program is brought to you by the City of Fountains Coaches Association.